Welcome to Find It. We are here tonight and we have a very special guest, and it's none other than Chillicothe's very own and favorite beloved band. And his name is Dan Ramey. I know you've heard that name before, and he has a voice like butter. Let me tell ya. Can't wait to get him on. We have a lot to discuss. So hang tight. We'll show his intro. Dan will be right back with us. Welcome, Dan. Oh, I love it. See why he's my favorite?
I'm living in the moments and the past is over, according to page 52.
So we're in the moment right now. Thank you so much. I know you have a busy schedule and you're always running around interviewing everyone else. And I was like, I need him on the show so I can interview him. I want to hear some stuff about you.
I thought maybe you just ran out of guests.
No, I'm booked through May. I'm booked through May. So I have plenty. I mean, I would make room for you, Dan. You know that. But
here. Thank you.
I wanted to have you on to talk about your life a little bit, but what you do and some things that you have found in life that you can share with us, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But how did you, let's just go right to the jump. How did you get into radio to begin with? And how old were you?
My very first day on the radio was, I was about 12 years old, and we were down in Kentucky, which is where my mom and dad are from. And we were camping across the road from WVKY. It was in a little trailer sitting up on a hillside. And so my cousins and I decided to make this trip up there. So Kathy and Phyllis and I walked the hill up to the radio station on a Saturday afternoon, knocked on the door, and the DJ came to the door and he says, "Hi, kids, come on in. I'll show you around." So we went, and my very first opportunity to be on the air at any facet was as a guest at WVKY in Louisa, Kentucky. And the guy says, "Where are you all from?" And I said, "Well, I'm from outside of Columbus, which was Asheville, and which technically is Skunk Holler. Maybe we can get to that a little bit later on."
Such a fabulous name.
Yeah. My cousin Kathy was from Columbus. My other cousin Phyllis was from Wheelersburg. And so we were making our first appearance, and I got to make an on-air request. We decided to dedicate a song to my Aunt Ethel, Kathy's mother, who was long past now, but she was camping and Dad had the radio turned on because we had made that trip up to the radio station. And the song we requested was "The Streak" by Ray Stevens. Ethel, get your clothes on.
Yeah, that's good.
It was a big hit back in 1976. So that's where it all started for me. But I didn't plan on getting into broadcasting. I wanted to be a band director. That was my whole preparation in high school, was to go to the Ohio State University School of Music. I was accepted by the School of Music, but money just wasn't there at the time. Now, you know what it costs to go to school. Yeah. Back in 1980, it was a drop in the bucket compared to
now.
Yeah. Back then, for mom and dad, it was too much money, and I didn't have the scholarship to go on. So I decided to kind of take a look at other priorities, and that priority was getting out of government class at Tays Valley High School. And my buddy Kevin Mullet, he came over to me and he says, "Dan, there's a guy from the American School of Broadcasting, Earl Bailey was his name, coming down to the guidance office. You want to get out of government class and go listen to what he has to say?" Sure. And there were 12 other guys that had the same thought. So we're sitting there in Neil Handler's guidance office at Tays Valley High School, listening to the great Earl Bailey. Man, he had a voice that just rolled. And I don't know if you remember when Fox 28 started doing TV, they did these little news breaks Fox 28 Express. Earl Bailey was the guy who sat there on TV, kind of looked like Fred Flintstone.
Oh,
And but
yappa dabba do.
he had the voice of God, though. I mean, it sounded like Charlton Heston doing everything. But at any rate, I listened to what he had to say. I was one of the ones listening, but it was the only one that ended up going to the American School of Broadcasting.
Wow.
Then 4 months later, after high school graduation, on my 18th birthday, was my first night on the air at WXIZ down in Waverly. So
Wow.
and it was a night to remember. I made all kinds of mistakes, and I should have been fired on the spot, but they were well, they hurt kinda like this. They were hurting for guests, and they were hurting for hosts. So, there I was. But
Oh my gosh.
that was my 18th birthday, and then my last day as a regular broadcaster was my 55th birthday. So, I went 37 straight years and doing nothing else. And,
I mean, and what how amazing you are at it, but it's not just radio. And I mean, I know Columbus, Chillicothe, you've been all over, and with
I couldn't hold a job.
iHeartRadio. Yeah, yeah, and with iHeartRadio, anyone can listen to you. But and then when you turned 55 and all that happened, and you decided to go and start this new thing with
Yeah.
Litter Media.
Yeah, the owner of the Litter Corporation, Matt Litter, uh, used to listen to our show on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Mike Smith, who co-hosts with me on our daily show Here Now, we hosted a radio show for 23 years, I think it was 24. And so he heard our show coming to a close, and iHeartMedia had some financial issues they were going through. Mike was our operations manager of the radio group, and he was let go in 2016
Mm.
because they were going through difficulties financially. And we've seen that happen. I don't know how many times. I mean, we had 3 or 4 reductions in force uh, while we worked together, and then Mike's number came up, and that was a red flag to me. If they could get rid of the guy who was with us for 40 plus years, and he was our news director, our operations manager, and our most high profile talent. If they can get rid of him, I'm not safe. And so Matt Litter heard my radio show coming to a close, and we worked to get Mike back on staff with us at the radio station, worked the budget. I get a lot of props to Josh Cook and Christina Wolford and everything they did to make it possible to bring Mike back. And so we're sitting at the Ross County Fair welcoming Mike back because the previous year we had lost Mike just before the fair. And when you go to the county fair, you see people all over the place, and you really rekindle relationships. It's like a reunion. And
Mhm.
and we were going to the fair for the first time without Mike Smith since 1981. And I did not want to face the public. It was not a local decision. It was made by bosses that are number counters out of our market.
And let's just say too, your heart was broken and you have loyalties to Mike and you
Oh, yeah.
care about him deeply. And let's give credit to you with the other people who was able to get Mike back too.
Well, like I say, we did everything we could, and I had received this email from Matt Litter back in this would have been July, I think it was. I was sitting at a Chicago concert down at Riverbend Music Center, and I got this email, and it said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about an idea." Well, I've listened to other clients talk about their ad campaigns and that sort of thing. I thought that's what it was. Well, I go in and I sit down and listen to the pitch that he made. And then he says at the end of it, because he's talking about video and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, what's this got to do with me? And he says, well, I want you to join the team and I want you to run it. And I'm like, you're kidding me. Leave everything that I've known for 37 years and start doing video. And little did I know, and Matt's a visionary. Little did I know, here would come COVID, and everybody would be doing things remotely, video from their homes.
That's right.
We were already doing some of that with the radio station, but everyone was finding a way to do what we're doing right now, streaming and talking and connecting.
Yeah.
And Litter was right on top of all that before everything happened.
That's
Um,
amazing.
so we decided to start doing some videos, and we wanted to start with sports videos. And with my sports background, I was the voice of the Cavaliers for 35 years here in Chillicothe. But I always, as a kid, loved watching NFL films. And so when we decided to put this together, we thought, how better to make it grow than to start recording some video highlights of our high school athletes in action, and then putting together a video to put up on our YouTube channel. And that became a hit.
Yeah.
People liked it. I was able to, and I try to tell the story of the game. And I have vicariously worked through these high school kids for my dream job at NFL Films. I
Yeah.
always wanted to do something like that. And so that's how we got things up and running. And then
But
eventually,
wait, what year? What year did you start with litter? Was it 17?
2017,
That's what I thought.
2017. And so we did the tail end of the football season, and then jumped into basketball. I thought, well, if we can do it for football, why not try doing basketball too? And what I didn't realize was how long it would take to put these things together.
Oh, editing those films.
Right. I mean, we're looking at an 8-minute video is around the average to tell the story like we do. But then we I found out radio, you could put it together in, you know, you're done. You walk away. Video takes 5 to
A lot.
7 times longer to produce.
Mhm.
And so I still try and do as much as I can football wise, but I kind of punished myself because I came up with little litter media extras. While I'm shooting the football game, like I said, I wanted to be a band director, right? I have an affinity for the marching band. And so I walked out. Jackson was playing Wellston. It was their halftime show. I just walked out on the field with my camera and I thought, I'm going to give somebody the view of what it's like to be a band member,
Awesome.
because we sit in the crowd and watch the band and are entertained by the band. But unless you've been in the band, you don't know what it looks like to look back at the crowd and to actually go through the performances.
That's a
So
good point.
I started doing that. And then the cheerleaders do their hello cheer. And I started doing short videos of that presentation. And
Because you always wanted to be a cheerleader too?
can't keep away from them. Come to find out, one of the early interviews I did was with Amy Brown, and I don't know if you remember Amy from high school or not. I think she was a 1984 graduate,
Yeah, I don't remember.
and she turned out to be my doctor's wife, which I didn't know until about 3 or 4 years ago.
Wait, Beam? Amy Beam?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't recognize her maiden name. I know her
Right.
now.
And so I'm we're friends on Facebook, but I didn't realize that it was Amy Brown.
Yeah.
And so I'm in my exam one day and I say to Wayne, I say, I didn't realize your wife I interviewed when she was in high school
That's
back in
funny.
1984. And he says, you're kidding me. And I said, no, I didn't realize that was who she was. So
That's funny. Well, I wanna know this. What did you play? What instrument did you play?
trombone.
Trombone. Do you
Fred
love jazz?
Probst was our he was our assistant band director when I was in junior high.
Mhm.
And that's where, and you probably don't know this name, but some of my high school friends still call me Ramu. And it came from Fred Probst. Uh, he had my brothers and my sister in high school band, and he called them Ramu. So here I came 8 years later, and here comes little Ramu. And
Dan
so that,
Ramu.
yeah, so some of them still call me Ramu.
That's funny. Well, then my next question is,
Uh-huh.
if you, did not even graduate from Chillicothe High School, how did we get this honor?
Uh, I think they were trying to build a new school or something, and they knew that I was the voice that could
No,
impress
that's
people,
not
and
why.
maybe
Don't
they'll
don't
vote for
weasel
it one
out of
day.
this one. You know why. You were inducted into the Chillicothe High School Athletics Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
what that picture is, and the reason, well, number 1, I mean, you were for years the voice of the Chillicothe Cavaliers,
yeah.
And everyone loves you and appreciates the man that you are and all the extras that you've always done for everybody in the community. So that's why I'm going to show the picture one more time. How
That's Will
awesome.
Brown there handing me the,
Oh, yeah, I remember when he was athletic director.
uh-huh.
Yeah. That what year was that?
That was 2013. I
Okay.
recall I went to the mailbox, and we've got an 80-step walk from our mailbox to our front door. And so I'm off that afternoon for whatever reason, because I always work until
Well, you
this
big slacker.
time. Yeah.
You got a day
So
off?
I see this letter from the Chillicothe Athletic Department, and I'm thinking, okay, they probably are maybe selling tickets for something or whatever. Hi, Sean. And so I am opening up the letter, and I'm walking back to the house, and I'm reading it, and I stopped in my tracks, and I'm like, they must be making a mistake here, because they said you have been selected as a member of the Athletic Hall of Fame. And I'm thinking, this is crazy, because I haven't worked for the school. I haven't gone to school there. Never scored a point in anything. You know, how can this be? It must be maybe just a special achievement award, something like that. So I walked in. I called Will, and he says, "Nope, Article 13B or whatever, and so on and so forth." I'm like, "You're kidding me, right?" And he says, "Nope, it's for real." And so I that is probably one of the greatest honors I've ever been given. And it was just, I went in with Abby Bunstein, who is now working out
Yeah.
at Adina, I believe, Chad uh, uh, McAllister,
Mhm.
and also the great Phil Bobo.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, here's two kids that I watched play ball. Phil Bobo was one of the people who welcomed me to Chillicothe when I got here, and it was just great to go in with that class. And now I get the opportunity to also be I replaced Phil Bobo on the committee for the Hall of Fame,
Wow.
and what a great honor to get to do that, and to help go over applications and credentials and everything of the future Hall of Famers. And
That
it's
is
fun to be able
amazing.
to say, "Hey, Hall of Famer," whenever I bump into Chad or Abby.
That yeah, you're Hall of Famers. And are you, to your knowledge, are you the only one who wasn't a high school Chillicothe High School graduate that's in the Hall of
Now,
Fame?
there are some coaches who are in there that didn't go to Chillicothe High School.
Okay,
The coach
coaches. I
Tom
got
Cup
it.
is one of those. But again, he was employed by Chillicothe City Schools. I don't know that there's anybody in there that
You?
hadn't volunteered or whatever. And I got to thank a couple of the athletic directors. Newt Bonner is the one who showed it to me. The other is Mike Barron, who Newt
Yeah.
placed when Mike retired.
Yes.
But they redid the Hall of Fame there at CHS in the lobby. And the original display had these large photos, and or large display, a collage of photos along
Right.
with achievements and all that kind of stuff. And they replaced those with smaller plaques because the hall kept growing.
Yeah.
And so when they didn't know where to put me. So I was a 1980 graduate from Tays Valley High School. I started working in radio here in Chillicothe in 1982. So they put me in the class of the 1980s, because they displayed everything by decades. And so where the 1980s begin are as you walk into the boys' bathroom in the lobby. I am the last face you see before you walk in.
That's funny.
So
That's
there's
so
always,
funny.
I was talking with Joe Stewart about this a few weeks ago. I said there's always a way to humble you, to bring you back to who you are, and
That's awesome. But
I
wow,
recall.
it is such an honor. And so you were saying, and then the way my brain works, you're like, I didn't score any points, not any, but you did with the community, and you continue to do that.
Well,
We
thank
have
you.
some people, Clayton Ratcliffe, hello, John Horton, hello. John Horton is going to be on the show next week, and he wants to get back into radio.
Hmm.
Trisha Harpay, Jennifer Valentine. You're right, Jennifer. Dan has amazing storytelling abilities. I love him. Sean Hay, Julie Preston, the wonderful, amazing, never aging Dan Ramey, or Dan Ramu, maybe we'll call him.
Hey, I
Yeah.
didn't know that Jennifer played trombone also.
Oh, is that what
Learning
she
something
said?
about the show.
Yeah,
I see that
trombone.
there.
I can play an air trombone,
Is that
Jennifer.
right? You do real well with the slide.
Yeah, I'll do right with the slide.
Well, they always said drummers are better lovers and everything. Well, we always said, yeah, but trombonists do it in 7 positions. Those,
Oh, that's
those
awesome.
7 positions with the slide there.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh my gosh, I don't see Donnie on here yet, but I wanted to show this guy with you.
Ah,
You guys get backstage at one of because what I wanted to bring up is you do radio, you do the extras, you do the YouTube, and you do a show, but you also do a lot in the community and surrounding communities for like beauty pageants, and give us an idea of like what all you do outside of that.
at one point in time in my career, I was kind of dubbed the Ryan Seacrest of Chillicothe.
Yeah, that
It's
fits.
everywhere. But I've had the opportunity to. There you go. When you see
Queenie.
Seacrest wearing a tiara,
Real men wear tiaras, okay? That's all I'm saying.
we were goofing around backstage, waiting for the girls to come through the parade at the Fall Festival of Leaves. They hold that pageant inside the Paxton Theater, and the girls ride in a parade through Bainbridge, and then they are brought into the theater
Passionate,
there.
yeah.
And so that was just hanging out by the table, just like the sashes were. Donnie was, I think he was Miss Congeniality. And, and I had best, evening gown there.
Best evening gown.
so, so we have a hoot doing that. I've done that probably 11 years, 12 years or so. And the Feast of the Flowering Moon, I've also done that pageant a number of times. And last year, though, I got to MC the Asheville 4th of July, Miss 4th of July pageant,
Oh,
something that, I watched as a kid. And then, but Nelson Embry, who I believe now is the acting mayor of Asheville since the passing of Chuck Wise here last week. But Nelson Embry and also Dave Rainey, not Ramey, no relation there. They were co-hosts and co-MCs like you and I do for Dance for Kids' Sake for 30 years, maybe thereabouts.
wow.
And so they decided to retire together, and they reached out and suggested I get a call. And so I appreciate that. Thank you,
That
Dave.
is amazing. And that
That's inside the steer barn, folks, at the Ross County Fairgrounds.
hey, nothing stops us from a good dance show for kids, right?
That's
So
right.
let's tell everybody. I mean, most of the people that are local know, but the people from all over the place that are watching this or will watch this don't know how we knew each other prior to us working together for Dance for Kids' Sake. Let's put this up here. This is Julie Violet, who was the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters when
This
you
is
and
what
I.
happens when you can't make a lunch appointment.
Yeah, do you see? This is Dan on a stick. And so Julie was the CEO when you and I got paired up together. You had been doing Dance for Kids' Sake hosting far longer than I. And then I was asked to join as your co-host in 2017. We've established that, right?
Yeah.
And we have so much fun. And, I'm a lot sometimes and I get excitable, and I'm just like, with you, I can just be crazy funny, not worried, because I know I just follow your lead. You've
The
done
only
this
concern I've
so
ever had is
often.
when they said, you guys ought to take this on the road. And I
Yeah.
thought this act on the road. And I thought to myself, are they complimenting us, or are they telling us we should be on the road somewhere?
Yeah, hit the road. Is
Run
it hit the
out of
road, or
town.
we should take the show on the road? What are you saying? But we have so much fun, and it's for such a great cause, and our community really comes together for this event. And now, so Julie had stepped away, and then Aaron Alsop,
Mm-hmm.
She is our CEO of the for the Dance for Kid or for, Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Look at that number, not
Look
the
at that
10,
number.
the 85,000.
Yeah, 85,000, so that's amazing for a small community like we have.
We even had an impromptu $327, I think it was, thrown in.
I wish I had pictures from that, or maybe I don't.
We were told that they weren't gonna have a silent auction for this time around, and so, that was fine and dandy. That's one less thing for us to promote, right?
Alright, one less
And
thing to talk
so, here was one of the couples, they were dancing and, they trying to think of their costume. It was the hat, wasn't it? Had this white hat, a ball cap,
and glasses.
and glasses. It was, Corey Lamberts and his wife. And so, you had finished talking to them. I was bringing them back out onto the dance floor, and I said, "Wait a second. Let me see that hat." And I put his hat on to cover this. But I put the hat on, and then I just said, "Do you think this hat is worth something?" And he says, "You can have it." I said, "Well, I don't want it." And I asked him to autograph it, and we started auctioning that hat.
Yeah,
Next thing you know, others were coming with
all the
their
dancers.
props and throwing things in. There was a tutu thrown in on this.
Yes.
There was a wig thrown in on it as well.
Yeah, and then you gotta tell what then end up happening. This is the thing. You gotta go to Dance for Kids' Sake to see it, because we don't have any video of it, no pictures, so you gotta come. The guy took his shirt off because it was a nice
Yeah,
shirt, and
yeah.
then he starts
We tried to
dancing
put
with
him
it,
back
and it was
on.
like, "Oh, well."
Yeah. He was like, "Who's gonna pay for him to put the shirt back on?" That kind of thing.
And then someone so we had a whole pile of stuff, and it was
Yeah,
right before Halloween, so we're like, "You could just suit your whole family with Dance for Kids Day props. Who wants to buy it?" And yeah,
yeah.
so who
It was
who did
weird. It was
buy it? I can't even remember.
almost there was so much lying at our feet there that it kinda looked like the Wicked Witch of the West had just melted.
Melted in the wavy wooden floor in the steer
Yeah,
barn.
yeah,
But it did look beautiful the way I mean, Aaron was so resourceful because, the college, Ohio University, we did not we couldn't do it there,
yeah.
and that's the largest place really to house this,
"Let's go to the
and
beef barn." You know, why
let's go to
not?
the Ross County Fairgrounds, and we made it happen. They made it happen. We walked in there and talked.
The
Dance.
coolest thing about this, and I appreciate, your abilities, Debbie, because she is the kind of person that she's got things down in her mind. She's well organized and to put it, but then throws in the little quips here and there and all. And we play, I think, pretty
Off
well
of
off.
one another.
And what people don't realize is I've only been to one rehearsal, and that was when I danced the very first year in 2012. Because dress rehearsal was always on Friday. Well, I was at a football game somewhere.
Covering the sports, yeah.
You've trusted me enough on Saturday nights that you go through, you walk through, you've taken notes and everything, and you share that with us. And I appreciate it because I know that I can just walk in and just do my thing.
Yeah,
And like I say, we work so well together, and I've been blessed by God has placed the right people around me everywhere I've been. Uh,
mhm,
my partnership with you, with Pat Hyland, with Jim Day, with Dana Cousins.
yeah,
I could go on and on. John Rose is another one of my longtime broadcast partners. Brian Wickline, who was a broadcast partner with Cavalier Sports.
yeah.
Dwight Garrett.
Oh, wow,
Now,
yeah.
he was just a flunky like me doing radio at one point in time. But I sit back and I think, what have I done to get to deserve the life that I've lived? And I've not made a lot of money doing it, but I have never worked a day in my life. It has been so much fun getting paid to do a hobby. And
Wow.
it's just been fantastic. And when you ask, how did you find it? I fell into it. And like I said, I could probably, had I gone to college, had I gotten my teaching degree, I would probably be double dipping right now
Mhm.
through, you know, retirement and then going back and be rehired again. You know, how they do
Yeah,
that.
they do.
But, that's not the case. That's not how it played out for me. And so
That's so I wanna know about your, how many interviews over the years, can you tell me about how many interviews you've
Estimated at one point in time because around, I want to say it was around 1997 or so, we turned our morning show on WBEX more into a talk show, news talk. And so we stopped playing music. And so I had these gaps to fill. So I started doing interviews and I landed into a booking agent who started sending, we were in the Columbus ADI of Arbitron, so they all thought we were a Columbus market radio station. Well, we were technically,
Yeah.
but we weren't in reality.
Well, not physically.
Oh, right. But we received all these invitations to interview people. So I started getting invitations to interview TV stars, people who were in current TV shows. Remember Lost on ABC?
Oh, yeah.
I interviewed, I think, 4 or 5 of their actors. Then, uh, oh, I can't re you've asked me too fast. I'm
Gosh,
60
you know
now,
what, though?
and
That's
really
cra I
catching
did
up.
not know this.
But, so a lot of those people that I interviewed were not just local folks. I was getting some big time stuff. Fanny Flagg, I've interviewed Fanny Flagg. Uh, but my favorite all time, I knew you were gonna ask that
I
question,
am, I'm thinking it. I
is
wanna know.
Mary Tyler Moore. She was doing a radio promotion for the Diabetes Foundation, and my mom was a severe diabetic, just as she, Mary Tyler Moore, and we had the best conversation, albeit for 7 minutes. But she made me feel so welcome. I tried to do the same thing for the people that I've talked with. I don't pin them up against the wall with these hard pressing questions. We just talk is all there is to it. And I hope I make people feel comfortable when
You
we
do.
do sit down to talk.
Yeah.
And, but I thought I had such a crush on Mary Tyler Moore when I was a kid. And Mike Smith was so disappointed he didn't get to participate that interview because he had the duty of the mayor's forum, which was on that day with Joe Sulzer. And I was talking to her off the air to record and then play back. And Joe says in that day in particular, he would always come in after the city council meeting. I think that still goes on.
Yes.
And so he walks in, he says, "You're talking to Mary Tyler Moore. Forget my interview. Let's talk to her." And I've said, "Nope, she's expecting only me." So, but it
Yeah,
was a lot of fun.
no, Mayor, you may not.
That's
If
right.
Mary Tyler Moore is only talking to me. That's awesome. Well,
But
what about
you
sports
asked
guys?
about a number, so I better put a number
Oh,
on.
yeah, yes, that's
We
right.
guesstimated around 25,000 interviews
Wow.
because I was doing about 25 interviews a week. And that included the daily shows we would do with coaches, uh, player interviews, and that's not counting the number of people that participated in that view. If I were to put a number on people,
Wow.
it would be close to probably 70,000 people over the time. And
That's
there's
incredible.
some parents that are commenting on this thread, and I appreciate that. I've talked to all their kids, I think.
Aw.
Even Marty Ford, I've talked to his kid.
Marty Ford, don't isn't he like another community favorite?
He
Just
is
love that
another
guy.
gem, yes.
He is amazing. Well, but what about sports guys? Like, have you gone to like I think like the Cincinnati Red? Have you gone and interviewed athletes too?
Uh, a number of them, yes.
Okay.
And it's not been because of who I am. Only one instant, I think, really was for who I was, and that was when the Chillicothe Paints had one of their players get signed by the Milwaukee Brewers.
Okay.
He ended up coming to Cincinnati, and the Reds Radio Network invited me to come out and interview him in the Reds. Well,
Dugout or the locker
not
room?
really the Reds. It was he was with the San Diego Padres when he
Okay.
was in Cincinnati. So I got to go to the San Diego Padres clubhouse to interview him. And while I was waiting for the interview, Bruce Bochy was the manager at the time. He's in there in the clubhouse along with the likes of Ricky Henderson, uh, and there's another big name that I can't grasp what it is right now. But it was neat to be around
Mhm.
all these guys, and I got to talk to the kid who played in Chillicothe
Mhm.
and to share that. Brian Tolberg, he now resides in Florida, I believe. I think his baseball career is well done. But it was really cool to get to do that. But I've interviewed Pete Rose, interviewed Joe Morgan. You see Joe right here, the late
Yeah.
Joe Morgan right there. And a lot
He
of this,
hasn't changed a bit.
and then there for a while, the Reds Radio Network had the Reds Caravan, so they would come in studio with us, and they would always have a current player. They would have a futures player, so someone that was a minor leaguer that's going to one day become a major leaguer. The managers of the team, which leads me to let me first tell you we had all but the Joey Votto in the infield at one point in time had been in our studio as minor leaguers, and when the Reds
That's
won the
so fun.
yeah, when they won the division back in what 2000 or 2010, I believe it was, all of those guys, Todd Frazier and the likes, had all been in studio with us, so that was really cool. But at any rate, what I wanted to get to was running into Dusty Baker. You know Dusty. Some refer to him as the toothpick. He finally got that World Series win. But when he was manager of the Cincinnati Reds, he had an opportunity to get away. There was a break.
Mhm.
His family wanted to come see Tecumseh. So, and Jim Barrington, who is
Yeah.
a local lawyer here in Chillicothe, Jim lives in a green house. And so one day his daughter comes walking in and says, "Dad, there's this guy that just walked into our backyard. I don't know what's going on." So Jim goes to check it out. At that time, there's a knock on his door, and he opens the door and he says, "You're Dusty Baker." And he's looking for a bed and breakfast here in Chillicothe, which is the greenhouse. He saw a greenhouse and thought that
Oh,
might be it.
okay.
And Jim says, "Well, I'm sorry, no, it's down the street over here." But Dusty Baker came to Chillicothe. Jim shares this story with me, and I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me." He says, "Nope, had a day off, came to see the outdoor drama Tecumseh, and his family was staying in a bed and breakfast." So the next year, we get to the Reds radio affiliates luncheon. Dusty is there to speak with the media. I bumped into him in the lunch line. We're filling our plates, and we had this conversation. I said, "Dusty, I'm from Chillicothe." He says, "Chillicothe? I was just there." Yeah. Jim Barrington says you showed up on his doorstep, and we had a laugh over that. Well, during the Q&A period, when he's up on the panel, they allow us to ask questions of the panel. And so I was thanking Mr. Howsam for bringing the Reds caravan to Chillicothe, stretching the players out across Reds country so the fan base could get to know their team. And so I'm making those comments, and Dusty says from the panel, Chillicothe, take his question." And Marty Brenneman walks over with the microphone, and I'm thanking Bob Howsam for this. And he says, "And I want to say thank you to Dusty Baker for coming to Chillicothe when he was on an off day and showing up and he starts laughing." Well, Marty Brenneman says, "Why have I not heard about this?" And so he says, "Chillicothe, tell the story." So I got to relay that story amongst all my peers, and everybody had a good time with it.
That's so funny because he does directions like me, apparently.
Yeah.
I'm going to greenhouse, like, oh, I'm not going to look at the address. I'm just going to
For a
find
landmark.
myself a greenhouse. It's on the corner beside of this, and across the street is
Yeah.
Carlstown. You know what I mean? Funny.
I do have to tell you, though, another was Bernie Kosar. It was his rookie year.
Ooh.
And the South Central Ohio Browns backers was a very active group at that time in the 1980s. And we had the opportunity to go up to this game. It was the New England Patriots, which had our Garen Veras as his rookie year with the Patriots.
Yeah.
For those of you watching that don't know anything about Chillicothe, he's from Chillicothe, played with the Patriots in the Super Bowl and all that stuff. So
Garen Barris, yeah.
I went up just to get an interview with Garen Veris. That was my plan. And so I rode the bus with the Browns backers to Cleveland. And also there were my cohorts in crime from the Chillicothe Gazette. So Tim Warzinski was there. Tim, by the way, would end up becoming publisher of the Cleveland Plain Dealer. He's now
Wow,
retired, but at one time he was the
didn't know
Cleveland
that.
Plain Dealer editor. And also Jock Fistick, who was the photographer. So we go down to do the post-game interviews. I go to the Patriots locker room. Garen got to play in the game, but Bernie Kosar got to be in at halftime. Just before halftime, Gary Danielson had injured his shoulder. He went to make a tackle after an interception. That basically ended his career.
Oh,
Bernie Kosar got to come in for the
take
next game.
over. Yeah.
Browns ended up winning the game over the Patriots. There was a fight down on the field afterwards and everything. Nobody was happy. GM Pat Sullivan for the Patriots took a punch to the face, so he had a bloody lip and the whole deal. So we're standing outside of the Patriots locker room waiting to get in to talk to Garen. And there is all kinds of language coming from through the closed door that we're not allowed into yet. So it was still a heated moment. Walking through the reporters was Mr. Sullivan. And he comes up and he's bang, 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 bang on the door. He says, "It's Pat, let me in." And his hair was disheveled. And it was,
He's bleeding.
in the fisticuffs, right? So I eventually got in to talk to Garen. Well, all this was taking a while. I then had an opportunity to go over to the Browns locker room, and I talked with Hanford Dixon, talked with a lot of the players, but Bernie Kosar was the one I wanted to talk to. So he was standing there cordially talking to everyone. This was now they sit you down on a table and you have their emblems behind them and everything, and they answer questions from the media. But at this time, you walked right into the locker room and put the microphone in front of their face and you asked questions. So I got to do that. I come out of the Browns locker room only to find that the bus back to Chillicothe was gone. I was still on the field there at Cleveland Municipal Stadium with Jock Fistick and with Tim Warzinski, who became my ride home.
Oh, wow.
There were this was before cell phones, so we didn't have a way to get a hold of Dave Smith, who I was on the bus with.
I mean, how did they not miss you?
I
Like,
think
just let's
because
go.
there was a keg or 2 on the bus, and I think that plus the concession stand and everyone that, says, "Beer for $3," or whatever it was at that time.
So
So,
they just
I
knew
think
they were on the bus.
out of sight, out of mind, because my eyes are crossed. I can't see anything anyway. So so here was Dan left to find a way home, and thank you, Tim Warzinski and Jock Fistick for bringing me back to Chillicothe.
Wow. Well, you did get to interview Garen Veris though, right?
I did,
Okay.
and with Bernie Kosar and with many other guys.
Wow. I now when you interview like that and it was it just audio or was it with video too?
Back then, it was just audio.
So
Yeah,
do you have access to those? Are those saved somewhere?
no.
Oh, that's
I
a
might have
shame.
some on a cassette tape somewhere in the back office of my house, because I'm a pack rat. But, my wife always says, "You need to get rid of all this stuff," but I like to hang on to it because I have to go
Yeah.
back to it every once in a while. But the audio tapes, I haven't gone back to listen to. I did produce at one point in time a series of Cavalier highlights.
Yeah.
So from the 1998, 99, and 2000 seasons, we burnt those seasons onto discs. And so I was listening to the 1998 season here not long ago, and it got me prepared for emceeing the first ever Cavalier football reunion. And
Mhm.
so last August at the Chillicothe Country Club, there was a number of guys. We had guys from the 1950s there all the way
Wait,
up to
what?
today, and got to introduce the senior class for this year to the Cavalier alumni. And it was really neat to hear them all talking old stories, seeing these guys get back together again. And if you're watching now and you're a Cavalier alumni, uh, or alumnus, I should say, uh, first Saturday in August after the scrimmage, we'll be back at the country club again. I guess they've already made reservations and looking forward to the next reunion.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Well, we've been on for 45 minutes,
I know.
and I could talk to you for another hour because there's other questions that I would like to know, but luckily
Are you
you
are
live
you
in
on a
town.
time limit? Are you cut short for 45 minutes and that's it? You're done?
No, no, I'm not because I wanna know of all the things that you've done, what has been your most memorable experience? I mean, the story you just told was,
Mm. Yeah,
but in your career, because I know, you have a grandchild and all that stuff is like
yeah.
the best.
40 years of broadcasting, it's tough to put into one memory. I wanna say quite possibly one of the coolest moments I ever experienced might have been the bicentennial here in Chillicothe. Uh, we got the opportunity. This was the bicentennial of there was the Great Northwest Territory, which was celebrated in 1996, where I got to interview Nancy Wilson, the longtime jazz songstress who was
Yeah.
from Chillicothe. She was back for that and riding in a horse carriage. I got to climb up into the carriage with a wireless microphone and we talked during the parade. And then I went back to what I was doing. But when we celebrated the state's bicentennial in 2003, we had the opportunity to MC the parade of counties. We had a chance to walk and go through a state legislature, which sat here at the Ross County Courthouse. Of course, for those who don't know, Chillicothe was the first, third, and fifth capital of the state of Ohio.
Fifth.
And well, I'm counting that time they sat down and had their reside
Oh, okay, because I know the
because
first
they held an actual session. So that to me means it's a state capital again, at least
okay,
for a day.
okay. Did not know that.
At the end of the day, when everything was said and done, we had been broadcasting all day, and Bob Neal was back in the studio, I believe, and he was checking in with all of our reporters. And I sat there on the bleacher of an empty now area in front of the courthouse, just reflecting on the day. And I thought to myself, man, what a day this has been. All eyes have been on this stage at Chillicothe back in the limelight once again for good, not for the bad stuff that we have seen over the years. But it was neat to be a part of that. And you know, I was born in 1962. We were just talking about the sesquicentennial of Ohio then,
Oh,
but to get to participate in the bicentennial, and it might have been my most prolific broadcast day,
yeah,
where I don't remember flubbing up words, stammering for things to fill. I think I was in my prime at that moment
that's
in
amazing.
2003. And then perhaps the other great moment was when Chillicothe won the state championship. Here's a team who uh, had lost its first basketball game to Brookhaven, and then they ended up winning 18 straight. We only played 20 regular season games at that point in time. And then Chillicothe lost to Zanesville in their last regular season game. No one, I think, other than the boys in that locker room and the hard driven fan like myself felt that they might be able to make it to the Final Four. And they did.
Mhm.
And when I look back on it, I think to the tournament we played in the holidays over at Wellston. They were playing Dayton Dunbar, who I think was ranked number 2 in the state at the time. And we had a player by the name of Humpty Hitchens. You know Humpty. This kid got up in his face, pushed him out of bounds.
Mm,
Humpty got back in his face. There wasn't any fisticuffs or anything there, but it was someone finally stood up to Dayton Dunbar, and
yeah.
it was Chillicothe. And it
Mhm,
took that kind of a drive, I think.
mhm,
And then these guys just played at a different level.
mm,
And they Logan Elm almost got them in the district championship game, but they ended up winning that and they went on to the Final Four. They played in the semifinal, a team that was averaging around 98 points a game.
yeah,
Well, you had to score with them, but you also had to play defense.
that's right.
A lot of the people that weren't playing them or that were playing them weren't playing defense. And Gary Kello and his group were great tacticians at defense. They got on to the state championship game. They played Toledo Libby in that championship game. This is a team that beat them by 16 points the year before at Ohio State, which is where we were playing that final game of the
Yeah.
season
Yeah.
for the state championship. Chillicothe's down by 16 points at halftime. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's just going to be a horrible game the rest of the way. How are they going to do it? That second half, they managed to come back and take the lead, and it was Libby that forced the game into overtime. So then Chillicothe and Libby, they exchange possessions back and forth in that overtime, and it comes down to Chillicothe's down by a point with 5.4 seconds left on the clock. We have to go the length of the floor. Gary Kello calls timeout. Humpty had already taken the ball like I'm going to hit down the floor. He was upset the coach called the timeout, but that gave them time to draw things up. So Stu Beverly is the guy he wanted to put the ball into play. Stu puts it into play. Humpty gets it. He goes down the sideline, gets around everybody, mind you. And Gary knew that he was my fastest trip down the floor. So as he's running down the sideline, he has to his left was Ray Chambers, to his right was Seth Dawes, and in between them was Mr. All Ohio, Mr. Basketball in Ohio, William Buford. He ended up going to Ohio State.
Yeah.
He now has to decide, who do I defend? Humpty, who's coming at me? Ray, who's on my right? Seth, who's on my left? Seth is a three-point threat. Humpty can shoot from anywhere, but he dished the ball to Ray Chambers, who could slam the ball. We did one game in Cincinnati where he had 7 slam dunks in the contest down at the Cintas Arena. So we're thinking he's going to put it down, but there's not time.
Mm-mm.
And instead, Ray told me, I knew there wasn't enough time for a slam dunk. He just lofted it off of his fingertips. The ball hits the backboard, hits the rim, and is doing one of these jobs, and it falls through as the light bar goes off on the basket. Next thing you know, it's the Cavaliers state championship. And that was probably one of my coolest moments in sports broadcasting, was to get to do that game. And to tell everybody that couldn't be at the arena, Chillicothe just won the state championship. I was playing it through my mind. How was I going to talk about it if they did come to that moment? And my words were, Holy Toledo, Chillicothe came to Columbus to win the state championship.
Oh man.
So that was
You were giving me chills because I was like rewatching it. Like you're so good at like you just see it, you see it again. If you hadn't seen it before.
Radio is the theater of the mind. So you have to describe it for people so that they, and now TV is lazy. Let them do the pictures and we'll comment along the way.
I can remember growing up as a little girl, and my dad would have the radio on, listening to a game while watching something else on the TV. And it's just like a memory I have. And even at a young age, I remember thinking, how is that man calling all the plays and saying who the names of all the people, all the athletes are, what they're doing? I mean, I always thought that was just amazing. And you do that very well.
I had the advantage of just doing Chillicothe. And so I
knowing
knew
it really well. Yeah.
But I would have to learn the other guys as we went through. Yes, there was a lot of times we messed up names along the way. We would forget what they were or whatever. But then there were times when we didn't get a roster. And so at one point in time when Pat Hyland and I were together, I said, okay, we don't know the kid's name, but we know the number. So we instead of saying, there goes number 45, we would say, there's Archie Griffin going down the field. We started associating that number with no name to a player who we knew that was famous.
With that number. Yeah, it's funny. You're hilarious. I'm telling you. I also love the fact that, it doesn't matter what we're doing during the Dance for Kids' Sake. You never get worked up. You never get it like, if I'm like, oh my gosh, this or that, you're like, well, we're just going to do this. And I'm like, oh, that's right. We're just going to do this. So I think all the years in radio and behind the microphone, you just learn. I think you're probably naturally are you kind of naturally calm?
I didn't used to be.
Okay. So it's experience.
For instance, earlier today, I sent you a text message. our internet had gone out here at our building. And so it was spotty. We didn't know if we were going to be on. I didn't panic. I knew it was going to work out right. But there was a point in time where I was very competitive. I was a backside basically when I would get upset. And then when I
A
gave my
backside.
when I sold out to the Lord, it changed everything. Uh,
When was that?
well, a Gideon gave me a Bible in the 4th grade, and I was 11 years old, and that's when I decided I need Christ in my life. And then you get crazy in your early teens, your late teens, and everything. But I never strayed away. I just didn't complete the task to allow me to truly give everything over to Him.
Mhm.
Had I not done that, I don't think I'd be where I am today. Um, and like I said, it's not been a bed of roses. I drive a car that's 7 years old, and I lived in the same house for the last 30 years, and that sort of thing. But while not being rich financially, I've been rich with other types of blessings,
Mhm.
and to know that this life is temporary, and
Yeah.
I've got to get to the post life, which is
Mhm.
eternal. That's what I'm looking for.
Mhm.
So whatever happens on this side, it doesn't bother me. And I've just learned to be able to temper some of that. Now, there are times I get riled up a little bit,
Mhm.
but profanity's not been a part of who I am. I don't
Mhm.
drink. I don't smoke. I've never had those. I've watched a lot of your interviews. I know a lot of your people are recovering addicts,
Mhm.
things of that sort. And I pray for those folks and think about the needs that they have. Um, and man, what a difference Jesus makes in your life. That's
Mhm.
all I can say about that. Because if you're looking for the ultimate healing, He's the only one that can provide it for us because He's paid
Mhm.
that price for us. And so, I've had the blessing to speak for Him in the pulpit, been able to just do things that I couldn't picture myself doing otherwise. And I've tried the other life, it was no good. And, even at 11 years old, I knew something needed to be changed in my heart. And as I've told a lot of my Sunday school class is teenagers, and I've told them many times, make a decision early in your life because there's going to be plenty of speed bumps that are going to give you difficulties down the road because Satan is always trying to go after your heart. And doggone it, the best way to go is to give up and surrender all of this and look for the future, which is on
Yeah.
the other side.
And Dan, you live your life. You don't just go to teach a Sunday school class and talk about it. You're an example. You live your life by example. People pay attention to that because you're the real deal, and I just appreciate who you are. And I want to talk about this before we wrap up because the show's called Find It, and you said earlier, you know what, I found it by I fell into it, but
Yeah.
really, it's because of the decisions you've made and your faith that things just sort of clicked. I mean, things for you, just like even in 2020, you were already doing, video because of Litter coming to you, knowing your radio show was coming to an end, and they approached you. Like, just the things that were placed in your life at the right time, I don't think is coincidence.
Yeah, I agree. Um, and that is just once again a reminder of God's providence for us. And he says to come to me, all you that are labored, and I'll give you rest. And when your mind can be at peace, when your mind can be at rest, and your heart. Now there are times that I'll feel guilty about something, and I'll have to ask for forgiveness over it. And what's crazy is talking to some of these people that you apologize to some of them, it didn't make a hill of beans difference. It was like, "What are you talking about? You're making too much out of this."
Mhm.
But had I not had that sense from the Holy Spirit to say, "You need to make things right,"
Mhm.
um, what's that mean to somebody that maybe you didn't go back and apologize to? There may have been a problem. that you could have snuffed out with an easy apology. And
Mm.
I've always tried to get along with everybody, and when I was in high school, I had friends who were the superstar, uh, people like Debbie Bettendorf, they were just top of the line people, but then I also had kids who were troubled were my friends also, so I've always been that kind of in between guy, and it's
That's
crazy,
aw, yeah, because you can relate to
yeah,
everyone, and
yeah.
everyone can relate to you.
And like I say, we try to put people at ease when they come in. And there was an interview I had one time when when a dentist was breaking out in hives, and I said, "Are you nervous about this?" And she says, "Yeah, I've never done this before." You could
Aw.
just see them breaking out on her, and I started laughing. And she's like, "Well, what's so funny?" I said, "Well, I always tell first time interviewees that this is going to be easier than sitting in a dentist chair."
She
And
that's
that broke the
cute.
ice, and she was fantastic after that.
That's awesome. Yeah, you put everyone at ease, and I mean, when I was on your show, I mean, I was on the radio with you. You had me on when you were still at WBEX, but when we got together with Litter, I I always get like a little bit of a butterfly. As soon as I sat down and we talked before we went on, I was completely fine because you put people at ease. You're so genuine and honest, and it just it's easy for people once, I think that you need to talk to people a little while before you
Yes.
just put them on.
Sometimes it's easier to have those sit down with someone, a pre-interview, so to speak. We couldn't
Yeah.
do that on the radio because, you know, the it was we were up against the clock.
Yeah, it was a
But
chop chop. Yeah. You
you
put the
as
things
Matt
on and I was like, "Okay, I'm ready."
as Matt
But
Liller told me, he said, "What we're doing here is we don't have a time frame for anything that you do. And the good thing is we're building what we call a digital library where someone can go to our YouTube channel, sit down and just look at that interview, just like you go to take a book off a shelf, sit down with that interview or that highlight video or whatever it might be, and just get away from it all for just a few short moments and then put it back on the shelf and either go on about your day or watch another on our YouTube channel. So that's been the cool thing about this. We don't have the high corporate broadcast restraints and things on what we're doing. So and we don't
your
sorry,
YouTube
man, but we don't
channel, everybody that's watching, in the information, his YouTube channel and Litter Media is all in there. So you'll be able to look Dan up and watch some of his interviews. And I love when you talk about everything happening in the community, you
yeah,
know?
we do a daily show on our Facebook page,
Yes.
which is all here about the Chillicothe area. But we don't just keep it Chillicothe. We reach out to most of Southern Ohio. We tried to determine what our territory for coverage would be. And so we decided our parent company, Litter Quality Propane, their propane territory is from Delaware County, north of Columbus, all the way down to the Ohio River, but also from Athens to our east over to Springfield in the west. That's a pretty big territory.
That's a
And
lot.
and so we've tried to we glean from other stories that we see on Facebook or on Twitter, and we try and share those things. But we want to promote the good stuff going on in our communities.
Mm.
There's enough media outlets telling you about the bad stuff. We want to give you the good stuff. And so recently, at the start of the year, we began doing a show featuring just Pickaway County and just Fairfield County. That would be Circleville and Lancaster area type news. So it's not like our daily show, but we have an opportunity to be single focused. Like earlier today, we had the director of the Pickaway Visitor Center on with us, talking about just things going on in Pickaway County.
I like that,
So
Dan. That's a great idea.
so it's a way to branch out, and if we get more advertisers through that, all the better.
There you go. Yeah, you've got McDonald's behind you. I know you
Yeah,
have
precisely.
several.
McDonald's was our very first advertiser, so that's why they're so prominent here too.
Yeah. They're
And
large and in charge behind you.
I don't have bobbleheads for any other of our advertisers. Maybe they'll give those to us.
Yeah, they gotta do that. Well, Dan, before we wrap up, is there anything else you would really like to share? And I do appreciate you talking about your faith and
Well,
and
I will tell you, Debbie and I don't go as far back as Debbie's husband and I do.
Yeah.
Debbie's husband was a professional baseball player,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to think, yeah, I wanna say the only time I interviewed your husband was when he was in high school, with
Really?
you to go to Sherman's. I don't know that we ever, and we may have connected when he was at Lakeland or wherever he was, at in the baseball side. Was he with Lakeland or
Hagerstown, and he was in
Hagerstown?
Baltimore. Yeah, he's with the Baltimore Orioles.
Pat Austin was with
Yes,
Lakeland.
but
Okay.
he was with the other, yeah. You know what? You and David should get together and talk because he mentions names that I'm like, I have no idea who that is, but you would totally know who it is.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. This is the one thing we haven't talked about is
Yeah.
our vintage baseball team.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
And David was one of our stars the very first year when we established the Adina
Oh my
Worthington.
gosh, and but now it's always we're gone during that. It's
Yeah.
always it's in the summer.
Well, I will tell you that the date this year is June 16th, I believe. So we have an opportunity. The Ohio Village Muffins play 1869 era baseball.
Who doesn't wanna be a muffin?
You right, exactly. Well,
I
we
mean,
want
come
you to
on.
be an Adina Worthington. So, Adina, for those who don't know, the Worthington family, was one of the governors of the state of Ohio early in its days. They were a prominent family back when Chillicothe was founded, and so they have this mansion up on Carlisle Hill called Adina not Carlisle Hill. Which hill is it?
It's Adina it's
Is it
the Adina mansion.
Yeah, it is Adina Mansion and Gardens.
Is it up
It's
Adina?
it's state property, and it's on a high point. Um, and so that's where we play our games. We will host the Ohio Village Muffins. I was, approached by, Liz Corzine, asked me during vacation one time, "Would you be willing to captain a baseball team?" And so we had a bunch of guys that were already selected, so to speak, and then I was able to recruit a few more fellows to play. We had an absolute blast,
Yes.
and we still have 6 guys who have, played from 2015 to today, and my pledge was to play until I'm 60, and, I think due to attrition, I'm going to have to play this year. But I'm a knee replacement candidate, but,
Oh,
so I've been putting that off as long as I can, and so at
well,
any
there
rate,
you go. You and David can talk about that too.
precisely, exactly. He can tell me how to take care of my knees.
That's right.
But, we have captained that for, well, now 7 years and, going on 8, and looking forward to our next match. We've had the opportunity to play at our Chillicothe Paints VA Memorial Stadium
Yeah.
against the Muffins. This year, we go on the road for the first time, uh, and we're
Muffins on
excited.
the road.
We have played on the road against the Muffins, but this is
Oh,
against somebody different this time.
okay.
We're playing the, German Village 9 up at
Oh,
Schiller Park, and
wow.
that'll be the first weekend in June, and, I'm hoping I make it through that game to play the next Sunday, which will be, at Adina Mansion and Gardens
Okay.
with the Ohio Village Muffins, because the following weekend will be the Kenworth Truck Parade here in Chillicothe, and I hope I'm still able to walk for that
Yeah.
parade because, I usually put in about 7 miles at a football game in walking around videoing, and
Yes. Oh,
I've gotten
yeah.
down to the point.
Oh my goodness.
There he is, Dave
When
Benton.
this is what you get when you have a producer. You never know what's gonna pop up.
That's one thing we've always wanted in our radio show. We never had a producer, and, I still produce what we do daily here, and, it's nice to have somebody like Lynn be able to do stuff like that
Oh
for
my
us.
gosh,
Pull
she's
it
in
up.
the background. And also, can we just get a little cheer for this beautiful necklace that has a butterfly on it? She sent me this. I just got it in the mail. Isn't this beautiful?
So she's
Oh,
it's fabulous.
oh,
She
that's right.
found
It's
your comments,
fabulous.
and she got it to you, so
Yes.
it's all about branding.
It's about branding. It's a butterfly. We're all transforming into something better, hopefully, right? So I adore you, as does everyone. And you are one of those people that if someone said something negative about you, we would all go, what's wrong with this person? Because there's, you know, I
Well,
mean,
I need somebody to because mom passed away, my dad's passed away. Somebody's gotta love me. So I
oh,
just
well, we all
to reach
do.
out to me.
Aw, there's a big virtual hug.
And
I just love you.
and we love you too.
Oh, so with that, if there's one last thing you can say that you have found, just to find it, to end it.
I better say I found my wife. We've been together since, let's see, she was 17 and I was
Wow.
19 when we got married and still
Oh,
together.
that's
And
that is great.
you don't hear
And
that very often.
that's finding success
Yeah, yeah.
in a relationship and in your but the other thing that I just want to say this before we wrap up, and hello to I saw Joe Ingram stopped in, and Dan is a super guy and I'm lucky to call him a friend. Thank you, Marty. I agree. Joe
Check his
Ingram,
email.
hello. But that you said, I may not make a ton of money doing radio and all that I've done over the last 40 years, but I am rich in the experiences and doing, I've never really worked. And, I've heard that quote, I don't know who had written it, about, do something that you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
And so, you certainly love what you do. So you're genuinely happy. And that's such a cool thing. So you have found it in life with the experiences, and the career that you chose just matches up, and it's a beautiful thing.
Well, and, I mentioned I wanted to be a band director one time, and we're standing in line at a ball game with my buddy, Don Irvin, who sings the national anthem at places all over the country. And he was singing that night for the Paints. And he said to me in line, he says, Ramey, you didn't get to be a band director, but think about your broadcast career and all the high school kids you've been involved with over those years.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself that, I haven't reflected like that before. And it was really kind of him to say, and one of those nice blessings. And the cool thing was I never had to give any of those kids a failing grade. I
No.
never had to do any of that.
You didn't have all the hard stuff, but you were able to interact and be around music that you love,
Yeah,
you
yeah, and
know?
it's given me great memories also.
Uh-huh.
And like when we had the alumni football gathering last summer, I saw kids who are now grown men, in their 40s and early 50s that I hadn't seen since they were kids.
Yeah.
And when I saw them walk through the door, floods of memory just
Mhm.
came back to me. And it was really humbling to get a chance to be there and witness all that.
I
And
know.
by the way, the new coach for Chillicothe on football hired this past year, he and I were classmates in high school.
What?
And I always wanted to get together with Scott at some point in time, be able to call the play-by-play of his games on a regular basis. I know I called a couple of games when Chillicothe played Logan Elm in the playoffs, but it was different. And we
Yeah.
played them. Chillicothe played Logan Elm at Tays Valley High School. So
What?
here was Scott and I on the field where I performed in the band. He was a football player. And so this would have been 2007, I believe, 2006 or 2007. And so he is there as the home team at a neutral site. He had not coached on Tays Valley's side since he was a player in 1980. So, and he'd been there many times as coach of Westfall and Logan Elm, but never there with Tays Valley.
Huh.
And so we've had a chance to rekindle our relationship as well. It was our 25th year class reunion, and I was asked to ask the blessing on the food. He told me later, I'm asking the blessing. His wife leans over to him and says, "That voice sounds familiar." And he says, "Oh, it's Dan Ramey from WKKJ. You went to school with him?" Just kind of elbowing. He was like, "Yeah." And I'm thinking, I was never kind of a thing until that moment, So,
You are a thing. Yeah, you are a thing. And that's right, WKKJ too. I'm just like,
yeah.
that's right.
Well, at one point in time, we had, and they still do, we had 7 radio stations we were operating out of the Chillicothe studios.
That's
You
right.
throw in their iHeartMedia streams, we had 14 radio stations with essentially 8 people to run all that.
Man,
That's another reason why I'm doing Litter Media.
Thank you, Litter Media.
Yes.
That's a blessing. I'm telling you, there's just no coincidences there.
And if people want to know about the Litter name, it's a family name. It's been around for a long time here. They were German immigrants who moved over here long ago, and Litter Quality Propane is celebrating 90 years this year. And
That's
Litter
incredible.
Media is celebrating year 6 coming up in October.
Yay! 6 years old in October.
That's right. We're starting to learn our ABCs.
There. Oh, that's so good. Good boy. Okay, well, Dan, I got to tell you again, you're very special, and
Thank
I
you.
am so grateful that you took the time to be
You're the
with me
best.
tonight. You are too.
Thank
And
you.
we'll for sure see each other and be ready to dance it up for the next Dance for Kids' sake. We've been asked to, well, you're kind of a staple. They asked me to be your co-host again. So it'll be year number 7 for us this year, co-hosting the dance show together.
I can't do.
So if, this is just proof that if one of the dancers drop out, we can co-host and go dance for them and then go back and
I've
finish.
been hesitant to say anything about this, but one of these days we need to do some type of short routine because I'll be out of breath afterwards. But we have to do some a sort of short routine just to get it out of our system and say
There
the
you go. I could do that because originally they asked me to be a dancer
yeah.
prior to like when they started. And I was like, no, you guys don't understand. I'm a freestyle dancer. That's not even pretty.
Have you ever
So
seen Elaine Bennis on the Seinfeld show?
that's what
That's
what happens. It does. It just doesn't look good. So we're just saying I'll co-host with Dan. That's more my jam. But I would totally dance with you. If you want
I
to do
appreciate
that,
it.
we'll do that.
I'll
Let's
ask
talk
your
about that
husband for
later.
permission.
We'll get some dance lessons before and maybe make it a little fun extra.
October 2023. Watch out.
October 2023. Dance. Dance like no one's watching, but there's only 1,000 people there.
Hey, I got Dan in dance, right? So
Dan and dance.
it's a perfect fit.
There you go. Dan and Dub. Dance. Dan. Dan can do the dancing, and I can just be around him cheering for him as he dances.
One of the things that my wife always said was, I miss you being on radio because I could turn you off. So it's about time, I guess, for us to turn the little off switch on this wonderful experience.
Oh, I know.
I'm humbled by being here. Thank you very much. I love you.
Thank you. Have a great night. See y'all next week, next Wednesday.
Bye-bye.
That floats around me, keeping me